ZenlessZoneZero has a really big problem that people aren't covering well enough. What do I mean by this? Well, let me get straight into it. You're likely all very familiar with the fact that TVs are very annoying when it comes to ZenlessZoneZero. For whatever reason, they're not only used as a medium for story time or for telling what's going on lore-wise between certain characters, it also acts as a way of narrating actions that happen, like saving citizens and having to put them onto train. And this is annoying for a couple reasons. If you're someone that was trying ZenlessZoneZero because you really enjoyed the combat, well, guess what? A lot of the early story bosses or enemies that you have to fight pretty much have 4 or 5 hits worth of health bar, and as soon as you finish combat, you're either met by dialogue, which if you enjoy a story is fine, but the other half of the time, and I'd argue even more so a majority of the time, you're thrown back into a TV simulation where you have to travel through, try to figure out how to navigate through a very lackluster and uninspired puzzle maze thing, and you lose your immersion. If you're someone that really wanted to do combat, well, now you're thrown out of combat and you're no longer appreciating or able to fixate on what's going on, specifically combat-wise. And if you're someone that liked story, well, now you have to enjoy story that's not as well crafted as a dialogue scene or an animation train. I know all you guys saw all the ridiculous animations that they have, by the way, because those were excellent. But the TVs, for whatever reason, are used as a means to break up this content or kind of act as filler in between it, which is not very good. Now, I haven't even brought up the biggest problem with the TVs, which is they're actually fun. Now, hold on. Before you raise your pitchforks or say that TVs should never have existed, you should remove it, let me be absolutely clear. As someone that has pretty much gotten through a majority of the story, I'm level 36 and I've hit a couple of roadblocks. During some of the exploration commissions, this activity is quite fun. I know currently there are people that say, oh, well, leave it for certain commissions or leave it so that when you're doing certain activities like the simulated universe equivalent, you can leave them there. But the honest truth is that even in some of these puzzles or explorations, you have some of the most inspired, creative looking TV module activities ever. To give you guys a few examples, take a look at what's going on screen right now. And sorry, it's a spoiler, so be prepared if you're about to get spoiled by this. But this is basically the equivalent of like a Galaga bullet hell kind of Plants vs. Zombie-esque activity. This is kind of fun, I'm not gonna lie. You have to beat up or you have to blow up all the little like incoming enemies. And while you're doing this, you can actually use the coins that you get to then upgrade the turret or bullets or whatever you have going on. Now, like, the goal here is to upgrade the drill, but in doing so, you can improve or enhance your turrets so that they do more damage or that they have an additional effect, which is actually kind of interesting. Despite having a majority of the content be fixated at some point around combat, being able to see this and being able to play a minigame like this is not boring. It's actually quite a breath of fresh air. Now, as a final example, there are certain activities that aren't as fun where like you have to do puzzles and it feels like you're a bit more frustrated because if you're like stuck on it, there's not like a hint or anything that you could do to try and figure it out. But I also think the most frustrating thing about that specifically is that on certain occasions, you're advised to try and get as many of the coins as possible. And if you don't, you might not actually be able to unlock the reward later, which means you have to do the whole activity twice, which is not good and it's very annoying. But that blemish aside, they also have things like Luigi's Mansion where you have to chase away ghosts or you have to run away from ghosts and turn on the light, which I think is really cool. And they even have Bomberman, which is also really awesome because I was a big fan of that as a kid, and you get to blow up certain chunks, you gotta find rewards, chests, etc. The problem with TVs is not the fact that they exist, it's the fact that they're being used improperly. Now, to be clear, I don't have the perfect solution for what the TV or what the perfect balanced TV system would look like, but all I know is that people enjoy the story quite a lot when they actually get down into it and aren't interrupted by something like a TV module that you have to go through a puzzle with. I just want to bring light to the fact that the TV system is definitely very good. It's just being showcased in maybe the worst way I've ever seen in my entire life. Now, unfortunately, guys, I also kind of lied. I need to be honest. There's two problems that we need to talk about when it comes to ZenlessZoneZero, and they kind of work hand in hand with each other. I just mentioned how annoying the pacing of the game feels at times because of the TV. Well, as someone that's level 36 and can technically now get gold level disk drives, aka the gear in this game, the content pacing issue does not stop at the TVs. Now, before I get too deep into it, let me actually show you what you get at level 36, because a lot of you guys likely aren't at this point and are curious if you should be saving up resources, if you should refresh to get to this point, is it even worth it to be refreshing? Well, here's a quick montage of what you get between all the different activities that you can do in the game with your stamina. Your combat simulation materials at level 36 don't change much outside of having access to advanced level materials. Your routine cleanups can now have a gold level disk drive, aka your gear, as opposed to only having blues and purples. Your expert challenge is pretty much the same as before. This is your ascension material, and you receive roughly the same amount at all levels anyways. However, I do want to make aware that if you are trying to upgrade the Electro characters, you actually don't gain access to their ascension materials until later in the story. I believe I received mine at around 34 or 35. When it comes to Notorious Hunts, the difference between the lower levels and the current level that I have with Notorious Hunts is just the fact that you get a bit more of the resources. You don't get an additional Ferocious Grip or the actual weekly material, as far as I could tell from being level 36. However, as it stands, there's no difference between something like level 30 and 35 when it comes to doing your weeklies. So now you've seen everything you've gotten at level 36. What's the problem? Haven't I already gotten past all the big major issues when it comes to ZenlessZoneZero? Well, no, and I actually have to break down this problem into 3 parts, which is a little bit weird, but they're all really important. The first problem with getting to level 36 is that it took a very long time, and you have to do pretty much every single side quest, every single agent story at that level up until level 34, where even sometimes that won't be enough and you'll have to rely on refreshing or waiting until you get more EXP from dailies to even get to a point where you can realistically continue in the story. And a slightly smaller extension of this problem is that they don't even tell you where or when you'll have access to some of these activities, since pretty much everything changed from the closed beta to launch. So even me being able to verify or know when I'll be able to get gold level gear was completely unknown to me, because all it said was I was going to get purple level gear for clearing out content at this level. That's not even that big of an issue though, because later on, content creators, other players will document or put them on the wiki exactly when you gain access to certain breakpoints. But the second problem I have in terms of pacing is that the early game, or much of the early game when it comes to ZenlessZoneZero, is very, very deceptive in showing you how strong your characters are. It's widely agreed upon right now that farming for disk drives outside of maybe one specific set that you have on your damage dealer is unrealistic because it costs so much, and upgrading purple gear is very, very cope. But once you hit that level 35 to 36 range, you actually start encountering enemies or fights where you need a little bit more damage. You start needing 2 teams to clear out the Forgotten Hall, not weekly repeatable Memory of Chaos or Abyss equivalent in this game. And if you weren't pre-farming for your character's skills or enhancements, you're completely thrown off guard, as not even an indicator of how strong the characters are going to be. The third and final part of the problem when it comes to pacing with this game is something that I mentioned earlier with the first part, but also from the TV section, and it's the fact that you have activities that you want to be doing in this game, i.e. combat, or i.e. getting more EXP, and you're just blocked out or have to wait through the whole sleep cycle or daytime cycle, and you have to sit there and do whatever activity it tells you, i.e. falling asleep, or you have to like be awake at a certain time for you to even get commissions or get EXP. Now, to be absolutely clear, I understand that this is for the sake of immersion, and as you walk out and about in the town, it does kind of feel like your immersion is there. You have things like the coffee shop you can visit, food to eat, certain NPCs that you can talk to, mysteries, little clues, etc. that you can discover, but there's no way for you to opt in and out of certain activities, or once you hit a certain point of the game, you would ideally just want to, oh, hey, I want to get all my commissions right now, or, oh, hey, I want to continue with the main story, and there's not even anything going on. Like, the quest at the top right will literally say, reach internet level 36, and you're just sitting there, and you have to just walk around, and as soon as Belle or Wise, whoever your character is, gets tired, you just have to go to bed, and you have to like revert, or you have to reset the time, and you have to wait a whole extra day or reset and go to sleep again if you want to access certain commissions. If you have no idea what I'm talking about, the morning, afternoon, evening, and midnight scheduling is not just for show. This is literally the only times that you can have access to certain activities. And unlike in certain games like Genshin or Star Rail, where the time is more cosmetic and it's not that big a deal, it's kind of just there to bring you into the immersion, you are actually forced to abide by the time of this game. Now, I can't speak for every single player when it comes to the pacing of this game. Maybe just getting enough pulls is enough, but as someone that wants to get to the repeatable weekly Abyss content so that I can either get repeated rewards, or be able to get to the point in the story where I can use my weekly farming materials to upgrade my characters and not be behind one. Being locked by all these artificial time gates or being forced to abide by certain rules of the game that are pretty much there for no other reason than to just inhibit or stop you is very frustrating. And now I've said all this, but surprise, I lied for a third time, because in my opinion, the biggest problem of all that I've mentioned is the fact that all these problems plague one of the most unique creative games that I've ever seen. It has so many unique elements that separate itself from other competitors. It is nothing like Star Rail in terms of design of character. Some people like to compare it to Persona, which I think is mostly people seeing all the random colors. But the fact that it is so similar to Jet Set Radio, the fact that the music is magnificent, the art, the animation scenes, everything is so unique. The characters, the voice acting, the facial tracking, pretty much everything when it comes to the character or the lore of the characters is not super bloated. It's fairly straightforward, though there is some yapping at times. And all of this is plagued by the fact that you get interrupted by a TV system. It takes you forever to get to the point where you can be on dailies mode. And this poses a problem for not just one kind of player. If you're someone that wants to get to the point where you can do your weeklies and clear the abyss, here's a major problem. If you're someone that really likes the lore or really likes the elements or storytelling or the design, the characters, the fan art of the game, here's another problem. I am truly saddened by the fact that some of the systems in this game really can be great if they just tweaked it a little bit or if they adjusted where certain things are. As I said before, I'm no game designer, I'm no developer, so this is only my take. And I'm sorry if this came off negative, but I really care about this game and I really have been enjoying it as someone that has pretty much done nothing but play the game for 3 days straight. ZenlessZoneZero is by no means a bad game. It is very, very unique and has a lot of potential. I just hope that maybe in the next story, maybe in 1.1, or by the time that I finish like the, I don't know, 72-hour long story that I have to do, I end up with a better picture of ZenlessZoneZero and its endgame or its overall picture. I've seen a lot of people comment about the problems of ZenlessZoneZero, which I think are absolutely spot on. However, I do think that there's a lot of people that are a bit quick to dismiss some of the elements because I think there is some potential, especially now that I'm doing things like the Luigi Mansion kind of exploration, and the fact that you can do stuff like plan dates with certain characters. It's very immersive in some ways, you kind of just have to get there. But of course, that's the problem and why I do think that criticism or criticizing ZenlessZoneZero is absolutely fine so long as it's done constructively. But those were my thoughts about the game. I hope you also enjoyed the showcase that I had for level 36. It took me quite a while to get to this point, but that's going to be it for this video, guys. Make sure to check out the rest of my socials. I will see you all in the next one. Stay safe, stay healthy. Good night. Whoa, it was a long Zenless Zone video, but I hope you guys enjoyed because I really did. You know what you would also appreciate though? This other ZenlessZoneZero video. Make sure to check it out. Goodbye. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. See ya.